This is the Hope Not Note podcast,
where we answer your questions and share inspirational stories to fill your soul with hope.
Our mission is to empower hope to those who have been plagued by note.
I'm Dr. Dylan Caswell.
And I'm Brandy.
And we're here to bring you out of the note and into hope.
Welcome to the Hope Not Note podcast. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to dive right into our question, and I'm very excited for it. It's the 44th episode. Dylan is clearly excited. 44 is a big number in the Syracuse world. Go Cuse. Do you want to explain why? Because if not, people are going to be very confused.
44 is
you have 44 seconds to tell.
Oh, okay. Legendary Syracuse football number. 44 seconds is actually more than you think, like when you're holding a point.
You're wasting time.
But so 44, legendary Syracuse football number. All the great running backs back in the day when Syracuse football was like a powerhouse. Jim Brown, Ernie Davis, Floyd Little, all these phenomenal running backs wore the number 44. It was like an honor to wear that. If you go to the Carrier Dome or the JMA Wireless Dome, sorry, Syracuse native, it's always a Carrier Dome and the Carousel Mall. But if you go there, you see the jerseys that are retired, and then you see a gigantic number 44, to the point that our nephew, when we brought him to the game, goes, wow, whoever number 44 was a large human being. That's how big it is. But that number has been retired, and since then, no Syracuse football player has been allowed to wear the number 44. It is the sacred number of Syracuse football.
Thank you. That might have been a little more than 44 seconds, but it's worth it.
We should have
Maybe it was 72 seconds.
Oh! Shout out to Tim Green.
All right, we're diving into our question. How do you make the best decision when it seems like you're in a lose-lose situation? That is from our listener named Philip.
Philip, thank you for that question. That is a tricky one because I feel like we've all been there. And there's a lot of different ways to handle it. But I think the first thing I would say is how urgent is the decision? And truly, how urgent is it? Because a lot of times we think that something has urgency. But when we take a step back and we pause, we go, oh, it's actually not that urgent. Because oftentimes, to make a decision, sometimes we just need more time. We need more things to kind of come to light to show us which way to go, one way versus the other way. So taking that step back and saying, like, do I have time for this, to give myself more time to kind of think through this and let more variables become present to make the decision? Because what are you basing the decision off of? Well, the evidence that you have one way versus the other way. And sometimes giving yourself more time allows that evidence to come to the surface that then allows you to make that decision. So that's the first thing I would say, is really look at, like, what is the urgency in which this decision needs to be made. Secondly, I'd look at, yes, we need to be concerned of who and what this decision impacts. But ultimately, which one is going to give you the most amount of peace? And if it's a lose-lose situation, which one is less of a loss? And how do you know that, of which one is less of a loss? Well, that depends on your values and who you are. When you have to make a tough decision, what keeps you on that pathway is the guardrail, and that guardrail is your values. And the more things that you do, the more responsibilities that you have, the tougher decisions you're going to have in life. But your values will continue to guide you on making those decisions. So what gives you peace? What are your values? And how does, if it's a lose-lose, how does the least amount of loss still allow you to live out your values?
I was going to bring up the peace thing, so I'm glad that you brought it up, because I think that in a busy world and like a chaotic world, peace is not a priority for a lot of people. And I also think that they think peace is like unrealistic. But the reality is like our posture, if we can have a posture of peace in everything that we do, then the chaos and the busyness isn't as fatiguing, right? And so I'm very thankful that you brought that up. I also really just believe that we have like a God-given intuition to be able to trust our gut.
Yeah.
But if you are distracted by the world and you don't know what your values are, it's harder to know what your gut is saying.
Yeah.
And so I think that like trust your gut, but make sure that your gut is in line with your values, right? And being in a lose-lose situation is tough because what I'm assuming is that either there's like a loss of like material goods or financial goods or whatever, or it's a loss in the sense of like both parties are going to be hurt in one way or another. And obviously we want to avoid that, but at the same time, like avoiding the best decision is not the answer. Like don't avoid because you don't know what to do. Definitely like take time to discern. And I also want to offer the encouragement to maybe reach out to a trusted person who's been in a similar situation, whether it be a mentor, a family member, or like a boss, or just anyone who's been in a situation similar. It doesn't have to be the exact details, but similar enough. Like they're going to be able to guide you and offer a perspective of what it's like on the other side of this decision. And I really believe at the end of the day, whatever decision is made, that decision is made, and you just need to make it confidently and then move forward with whatever the results or the outcomes are. I think we get so caught up in like, oh my gosh, which decision, when if you just make the decision and move forward, and that's going to bring you more peace than like continually stressing about it.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Quick story.
Yeah.
2 quick stories, 44-second timers on each of them.
All right.
And then a point to bring into it. But you made the point of this intuition. And what I've learned in doing sports medicine is that parents, and specifically sorry to the dads out there, the moms know. Like they know their kiddos. It's like kind of like scary how well they know their kiddos. And I've seen situations where, you know, the kiddo's not showing any signs of what this thing could be. And the mom's like, no, I get it. Like, I hear you, and like, that all makes sense. But I still have this feeling that I should go get this checked out. And they go get it checked out, and lo and behold, it's that thing. And it's like, whoa. Like, moms know. Yeah. And like, if you're a provider and you're working with kiddos, listen to the parents. Listen to the mom. If they're overbearing and they're watching every little thing, then you can be like, okay, like let's go to the waiting room and let us have this time. But when you're gathering the information to make decisions and clinical hypotheses, like the kiddos aren't gonna divulge all the info that you need for it. Some will, but most of the time that's not gonna happen. The parents, they know their kiddos. They know how they behave. They know their thresholds, they know how they operate, and like all that stuff is super valuable. And then second, you made a huge point of community. And in these decisions, how helpful it is to talk with someone. How many decisions do we make in a week with just the business?
Yeah.
And being able to communicate with each other of, hey, like we have to make this decision. I'm thinking this, here's why I'm thinking that, but I could also be seeing this side of it. I want to extrovert it and see if you have thoughts on it. And I'm going to point us to the great series of Friday Night Lights. Again. Coach Taylor's in a tough decision. Do I start J.D. McCoy, the freshman quarterback that comes in, has a stubbly arm, and is going to be probably an NFL quarterback? It's a reality, not a reality show, a fictional drama. So like there's no J.D. McCoy in the NFL at this point. But there's players like J.D. McCoy in the NFL at this point. But J.D. McCoy, freshman stud, comes in, great arm, moving to a spread offense. He's the guy that's going to get you the win. Matt Saracen has done everything for you. This kid is a warrior. He's never questioned you. He's gone in. He's gotten the job done. He's tough. The team respects him. Who does he start?
And he's a senior.
And he's earned his spot. Who do you start? It's a new offense. They're not doing well. The pressure's on him. The boosters are after him. He's got to make a lose-lose decision. I start J.D. McCoy, I lose Saracen's trust, and this kid has earned it. I start Saracen, JD McCoy is the better candidate for the position, and if we don't win, then the boosters are at me and my job's gone. Lose his decision. So what does he do? He talks with his wife.
Yeah.
He lays it out, and boom, she drops knowledge on him. They make the decision. Spoiler alert, JD McCoy quarterback, Matt Saracen receiver.
Mm-hmm.
It works out.
It works out.
So what seemed like a lose-lose decision, he thought through it. He gave it time, because at one point the week earlier, he did half and half. JD McCoy got half the snaps. Matt Saracen got half the snaps.
Mm-hmm.
Let himself get more evidence to make the best decision. Still, once he got that, he sat on it, thought about it, extroverted it, talked to his wife, made the best decision that he could in that, and then it ended up being a win-win situation when it originally started as a lose-lose.
Yeah. Simply said, if you are married, consult your spouse, because any decision that you make, and granted, we've been married for a year, so like, whatever. I firmly believe this, and I've been told this by many people who've been married way longer than we have, but any decision you make impacts your marriage, impacts your vocation, impacts your family. So the decision should be made as a unit together, and it should be like, it shouldn't be like 50-50, it should be 100%. Like, you don't move forward with a decision until you and your spouse are on the same page and are moving forward together. Let's dive into the hope stories.
Wait, before that,
oh, okay.
I want to share one other story and then another point, or point and then story.
Okay.
44-second timer on. All right, so when we are facing a lose-lose decision, and it feels like lose-lose, we also have to, yes, think out the decision, but don't go too far into the what-ifs. Because if you keep going into the what-ifs, you're just going to drive your brain wild. Why? Because the brain wants certainty. It works by prediction. The more uncertainty you give it, the more of a burden it's going to carry with you. So, yes, think through the decision, but don't get too caught up in the what-ifs of like, if I make this decision now, 50 years from now, this thing may happen. Like right now, given the circumstances, given the environment, what's the best decision that is in line with your values, that you have to make the choice and then live life and see what comes from it. Last thing I'm going to say on this point before the hope stories is oftentimes the first decision that we make, we talk ourselves out of, and then we do this whole circle of getting back to the first thing that we were going to do. And a quick example I can give of this is one of my old roommates was having car issues, and he's really, really handy, very mechanically sound, likes puzzles, likes figuring things out. And one of these guys that likes board games on a Friday night or Saturday night, where I'm like, I did so much thinking through the week. I don't want to think by playing a game. I want to watch football. But had some car issues going on, and he had the feeling that it was this one thing, that something got sucked up into a particular area. And then he talked himself out of it. He took the entire engine out, took it apart, put it back together, changed this, changed that, changed this, changed that. It was like a 2-month process, and that wasn't the solution. The solution was the initial thing that he thought it was, which was a paper towel got sucked up.
Oh my gosh.
So he cleaned that out, and then the car started and was fine. But he talked himself out of the first thing that he thought was going on, and then ended up getting back to that. And I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing, but oftentimes when that first decision is there, like, sit on that a little bit longer before you talk yourself out of it.
For sure.
Yeah.
Hope stories?
Hope stories.
Great job with trying to keep it to the 44 seconds.
If someone has a timer, they're going to be messaging us like, dude, you're way off with your time.
Maybe it's 44 if they're listening on Spotify and have it on the 2x speed or something like that.
Yeah. Well, that's why I try to talk fast sometimes, so people can't listen to it on the 2 speed. No, I'm just kidding.
Gotcha.
What's your hope story?
My hope story, ever since the kids have gotten back into school, which is funny because in the summer, I feel like that's when kids are playing outside, but I feel like it's the opposite in our neighborhood. Ever since school started a few weeks ago, every single day, as soon as the kids get home, it's like the neighborhood swarms to our next door neighbors, and there's at least So there's 2 kids next door, but then there's at least like 2 more kids, but sometimes there's as many as like 6 or 7 kids. And they're either playing football, doing flips on the trampoline, or teaching themselves how to do backflips like on the grass. And I think it's awesome, but I'm also like, why is it starting now that school started? Like, why wasn't this the entire summer? But at the same time, like, it is so refreshing to like see our neighbor get off the bus and just sit outside until like the next bus comes, and a kid like maybe 4 or 5 houses down gets off the bus and he just starts screaming his name and waving, because that's what we did as a kid. Because I grew up in a neighborhood that there were 9 kids next door, 2 across the street, like 4 uptown, a couple around the corner. We had 4 in my house. And so like that's what you did. You were like, it wasn't homework time after school. It was like playtime, and then you got to go do homework. But like in 2nd, 3rd grade, there was no homework anyways. And so it was like, let's just go play. Blah. And so I don't know. That's just been so refreshing to see.
Yeah, also a little intimidating. We live next to the most athletic kids / have like this super incredible athletic young population in our neighborhood. They're ripping backflips in the front lawn after doing back handsprings. Hey, when did you learn to do that? Oh, today.
Literally said that.
I just tried it, and like perfect backflips, landing it on a downhill slope.
Yeah.
It is so impressive.
It's so impressive.
So impressive. Oh, I like Hope's story off of that. It's a hard one to follow because it is really cool. Yeah. To see that, and like these kids have access to all the other video games, TV, phone, social media. Yeah. And they're not using it. Like they're outside playing, and it's just so awesome to watch. And like the games that they kind of come up with, and like there's a smaller front yard, and they play like football in the front yard instead of like this big backyard. Yeah. And they have, but then there's like the electrical box that's like safely covered, and then watching them do like American Ninja Warrior stuff off that. Yeah. I'm just waiting for them to do backflips off the box. Yeah. Oh my goodness. But my hope story is that our nephew back in Pennsylvania, what do you call the town fair? The littlest. It's the littlest big fair around. The littlest big fair around. He loves Syracuse, and talking of the episode number 44, he's gone to a couple games at the Dome with us and has just become a big Syracuse fan. And he went to the littlest big fair. Yeah, the littlest big fair around. The littlest big fair around in Pennsylvania. Yeah, it's just our small little fair. It's kind of like a carnival on it, honestly. Like compared to a state fair, it's nothing, but it's like the highlight of the year back home. Yeah, so he won a game and got a Syracuse cup from this little town, which is so cool that they had Syracuse gear at this town. But that's the thing that he won, and he was like excited and said, send us a picture. Yeah, it's so special too. Like he often says like, when I graduate high school, I'm going to come up to Syracuse. Like he just wants to like move up here and be like part of this community. It's cool living in a college town, I will say, and I think that he wants to experience that. But he still has a couple years. But it was, shocking that Syracuse would be at this small town in Pennsylvania. But I love it. It's like Ohio State or Penn State, right? Or I mean, they might have been there, but the fact that he chose, he's like, give me the Syracuse. He's like, give me the S. Yeah, go Cuse. What we didn't ask him was how many times he played that game in order to win that cup. He's really good at carnival games, I will say. Like every year he gets like wild stuff, and I'm like, okay. As one of our clients won 3 giant stuffed animals from the New York State Fair that are just like down in the basement now. I walked down there, there's this huge stuffed like saber-toothed tiger. Oh my god. Like, what is this? And he's like, I knocked down the metal pins at the fair. Oh like I was hot, cocked back, whipped it, boom, they were done. All right, well, we'll wrap up special episode number 44. Go Cuse. Giving Syracuse love as many times as we can in this one episode. But have a great week, and remember, every day is not just a day to be hopeful, it's an opportunity to become hope.
The Hope Not Know podcast is meant for educational, informational, and personal development purposes only, and does not constitute any health or medical advice. If you're looking for specific advice, connect with us to work with a Hope coach. The Hope Not Know podcast shall not be liable or responsible for any loss or damage allegedly arising from any information or suggestions in this podcast.